Well, hey fans, welcome back to the 5th annual JanuScary special, and today we're talking about Final Destination Bloodlines. So Final Destination Bloodlines is a supernatural horror film directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein, and it stars Teo Briones, Richard Harmon, Owen Patrick Joyner, Anna Lore, Brec Bassinger, and a special cameo by Tony Todd. May he rest in peace. And this is the 6th film in the Final Destination series, but I think it's a standalone sequel to the Final Destination, and follows a college-age girl named Stefani. She has a premonition set in the past of her grandmother saving a bunch of people from like a doomed restaurant that is like, like that needle thing in Seattle, like that falls apart. One of those type of restaurants, and she can't really explain why she's having this dream. She hasn't seen her grandmother in years, and she goes back home to her family and says, hey, this is what's happened to me. I don't quite understand. And shortly after, their family starts dying in mysterious ways. And I have to say, I love the Final Destination franchise. It is one of the best horror scenarios ever created. And I saw the first one, I think I was like 11 years old, Final Destination. Man, that is just a classic to me. And when I saw Final Destination 2, I remember I saw that with my brother and my cousin. Like, they're like older than me. But man, they really amped it up in the second one. And from then I'm like hooked. I'm like, well, where are they going, with this franchise? I can't wait for a next one. Final Destination 3 came out when I was in high school. It was fine, but it was like, kind of like Scary Movie 3. It's like, it's fine. It doesn't hold a T to the previous 2 movies. And then you had the Final Destination, which was forgettable. I don't even think I know who was in that one. But then it came out with Final Destination 5. Now, when Final Destination 5 came out, I enjoyed it. It was a great sequel. And only once you get to the end of that movie do you realize what they were doing. And it's been years since, that movie come out. So to spoil it, Final Destination 5 is a prequel to Final Destination 1 and 2. And it was amazing. And I loved it. And it makes that trilogy the best movies. Now, we've had, I don't know how many years since Final Destination 5 came out. But I was in college, so maybe at least 10 to 15. Let me check that actually. It has been 14 years since that last movie. So hearing about this, I was very interested to see, what they were going to do with Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, originally, this movie was supposed to be a HBO Max original. It was not going to go to theaters. But, when the Warner Brothers was in some trouble, they bumped a bunch of stuff up, like Blue Beetle to theatrical release, and they did the same thing with Final Destination Bloodlines. You can kind of tell that this wasn't made for a theatrical release because none of these stars in this movie are stars. I have no idea who any of these people are. And even today, I still don't know who these people were. But I think they did a fine job with this movie. I like the concept because when you do these Final Destination movies, yes, death is coming for us because we survived something we shouldn't. Death is figuring out these ways to kill us. It's looping back around and skipping over people. The rules are changing from movie to movie. Kinda new things are introduced. That gets kind of stale after a while. What are we going to do now? Well, we're going to focus it on a family and see how, people connect to these characters. And I think that was a brilliant idea. That was great, having the lore be that a family is dying, starting from something that the grandmother did years back. And what they actually do in this movie is by saying that what that grandmother did years back is actually the start, for now, because there's planning to make more of these movies. We'll see how that changes. But for now, what that grandmother did all those years ago was the start of everything in the rest of the Final Destination movies. So the events Final Destination 1, him having that premonition, it didn't start with him. It started way back when, in like the 1950s. So in that opening scene with that restaurant that's, crumbling and all those people are dying, that, in classic Final Destination fashion, is very gruesome, is very funny, and very well done. There's like a kid in that opening sequence. There's 2 kids. One kid who plays an important part later, another kid who's just a jerk. It's like, man, people need to do a better job at raising these kids. But overall, I think the cast did a fine job for being nobodies. There is one particular character who I did actually feel really bad for when they died. Because another thing, like a lot of these people, see, in the first movie, those were all like high school teenagers who were getting killed. It's tragic, but they're all being like played by like basically like adults. And I think pretty much these kids are also adults. but they feel younger for some reason to me. And maybe it's because I'm older now. Like when I saw the first Final Destination, I was like 11 years old. So seeing those high school kids get killed affected me differently now that I'm like a 35-year-old man seeing high school kids with families get killed. So I think that's interesting. Like, yeah, your audience is growing up. They're being affected by these deaths more. But like there's one particular character who's like, he's like really feeling, he's like, I don't want to die. Like I got my whole life ahead of me. Like this, what are we going to do? And like the way they set it up, and you tell, like he has an older brother, like he's like, look, I'm going to make sure that you don't die. And there's some love there. There's some heart, some connection. And they even try to come up with a plan like, okay, what if we do this to make sure you survive? And I thought it was sweet. And unfortunately, this character does die in a very dark way. But man, I felt for him. I felt for him. And there's another character in that very same scene. Another character dies, and it's like, I don't know why they died, because technically they're not on death's list. And it is actually a funny situation why everybody thought this character was going to die and doesn't. I don't want to spoil that part for you, but it's kind of great why he is not in death design. This character does still end up dying. And it's kind of like, well, if death has this list and death is only killing certain specific people, is death just being a jerk now? Because there's a few times in this movie, like, death is doing stuff and is like just to be a jerk. It's like, well, what is that? It's, you have to kill people because they were supposed to die. And in the first movie, like it was like you kill people, but you don't want to let them know that you're killing people, so you make it look like suicides or whatever. And then it just became freak accidents as the series went on. But now it's kind of like the lady's like talking to Death, like, you're not gonna get me this time. And Death's like, and moves on or whatever. And so it makes you like, is Death? By the way, Death is not Tony Todd. We all thought Death would be Tony Todd. Death is not Tony Todd. Tony Todd, turns out, is actually somebody in this chain of events who was supposed to die like long ago when they were a kid. So great to see him. I'll get back to Tony Todd later. But the things like the rules that they've added, basically, if you do survive, like the grandmother, if you spend years just beating death every time it tries to kill you and you survive, death just gives you cancer. Like, there's two characters in the movie like, I've survived all of these years, but now I have cancer, so I'm going anyway. And I think it's like, if death can do that, if death's like, look, you keep avoiding me trying to kill you, I'm just going to give you cancer. Why not just give them all cancer? They just, all of a sudden they have cancer. If those are the abilities, just give them cancer. They're going to die eventually. Clearly the order doesn't matter since you can skip over people as you please. I think I don't know. They should go a little more into that. And also, the grandma, death gave her cancer. She was dying. And then when he was able to, or it was able to, it killed her anyway. Like, that was crazy. But back to Tony Todd. Tony Todd has a small cameo in this movie, basically explaining his role in the overall, Final Destination franchise. And I remember sitting in the theater and watching it for the first time I saw it. And it was just like, man, it really feels like Tony Todd is talking to me, as an audience member. And then later in the interview, they said, basically that's exactly what was happening. They did not have anything written down. They said, hey, Tony, because he was battling cancer at the time, a lot of people had noticed he had started losing weight. But they said, hey, say whatever you want to say in this moment, and, we'll just record. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I almost shed a little tear in that moment. I will miss Tony Todd in this franchise, even though his role has always been minor. He's never really had a major role in these series, but he left a lasting impression as William Bloodworth. So I enjoyed that. Now, kills, like I said before, great, gory. I want to see more. I don't know if these directors are coming back. I think they moved on. I think we're getting new directors, but I kind of want to see, where do you go next? With Bloodlines, it really feels like this is not wrapped up, because you see the list of how many people death needs to get. It's pretty extensive. You kind of know where they can go next as well, because you have, like, it hurt like somebody says, hey, death is coming for us. Like, that your wife is one of those people. Your children are some of these people. How does that affect you? And it all happens very quickly. There's like a dad in this movie. Like, for his children to die and his wife and his in-laws, man, like I said, as a 35-year-old man, it hits a little differently than when you're a kid watching these type of movies. But, in terms of a score, I'm going to give Final Destination Bloodlines a solid 6 out of 10. Like, could it have been better? It could have been a lot better. If they had known it was going to theaters, I'm sure they would have hired better actors than any of these people in this movie. But, some of them are funny, and hopefully they all get better. And hopefully we get more movies. I want to know where they're going with this franchise next. You've done Bloodlines. What's the next one? What's the play? Or you just kind of, start from scratch and just basically do the same thing again. And also, where are they going to name it? Are they going number scheme? Are they going subtitle? I'm interested to see. And I thank you guys again for joining me for the 5th annual JanuScary special. You can find the full review on YouTube and the website, flipfrogllc.com/flicksfrog. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. And please, pretty please, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.